we're back from some technical difficulties. But what I was talking about was the seduction of our culture and ways that we can withdraw ourselves from all these distractions, and really be honest with ourselves. And, most people's lives are their whole purpose of their life is to run away from all of their feelings, Buddhism talks about uh, the heart of compassion, and most of us live in our intellect and not in our heart, and I think that we need to get back into our heart so we feel the connection between each other, and I think that's part of a high consciousness activity is we realize that this person could be me. I don't want to be mean to this person. And, it hurts me so bad when, I see wars proliferating and beautiful land being destroyed, people being slaughtered, women, children evaporated. It's a nightmare, and it all comes down to low consciousness. And I do think that people making these evil decisions will have a debt to pay. It's not irredeemable. I don't believe that it's irredeemable. It's like what Jesus said. He said, Father, they know not what they do.
Right.
And I think that's the case. These people just haven't developed there yet. And
You see, and hopefully this doesn't sound superior in any way, but the unspeakable things that there's not a word to put them down that's great enough for the things that they have done. And what I mean is the people who has committed rape, beheadings, God knows what else. We have talked about this a lot and do not at all, we can't wrap our minds around why this would be happening. We don't understand, and we admit that we sometimes get frustrated when we don't understand how people are
so cruel.
just the stuff that's happening, but that's on a larger scale.
I think about this all the time. Like,
it doesn't.
How could this even be happening?
That's pretty much what
How could this even be happening? Why are there still wars? Why are we doing this? Why is the world being ran like this? It's just very perplexing to me. It's like, it's a mind virus, man. People are infected with this idea that, me against you, and we could literally be living in a world where we all help each other out. We're all nice to each other. There's no reason why we couldn't do that.
So I would love to, we've talked about this as well many times, to point out the truth of what this world should look like. And there's no other way but this. No wars. It's completely the most unnecessary thing. It's so insanely not necessary. We should all be here having open conversations, showing love to anybody, anything, animal, anything that we come in contact with, and trying to figure out this very strange situation of what we're in, but at the same time still enjoying, as long as we're not harming anybody in any way,
enjoying our human
flesh.
Because, we very well could be infinite beings, that's taken on this incarnation to feel, what it's like to be finite. We should enjoy the finiteness of humanness, because I think that is quite possible that we are infinite beings, and we should enjoy our humanness as long as it's not harming anyone, and as long as it's not a distraction from the ultimate goal, which is to free the soul, from matter.
We also would like to point out that we very rarely have conversations about politics or any of the things really going on in this
mundane dimension,
this mundane illusion of topics, whatever the news is talking about. But we would like for everybody to take a step back and look at the people. Let's look at Donald Trump. A lot of people love this guy, and you know, let's look at this old fucker for a minute. He is somebody who has, openly said, does he even think about what happens after this and he's lived a relatively long life, which
old fuck, man.
which points out he could easily, I would not be surprised if he was to pass away of natural causes at any time.
I mean, the guy is gobbling down Big Macs every day.
I was getting ready to say that. I don't want to say
even that is a symptom of low consciousness.
This is not good.
No.
The fact that he's gobbling down Big Macs every day.
Toxic fucking shit every day.
I would love to point out an absolute.
I don't eat that shit, man. I very rarely do. I don't like to. It makes me feel like shit.
I want to point out an absolute fact. Whenever I was eating frequently fast food, my brain, I've always felt, fairly different, but I was not able to touch on some of the things that we've talked about since I've basically for the most part quit eating any fast food. The things that we talk about, some of the things that we eat is very similar. We eat like almonds, we eat natural peanut butter, we eat honey, and sometimes fruits, although that's even
in this culture, unless it's organic, even a lot of the fruits and stuff are filled with pesticides, and it's very sad.
One thing is kind of going back for a minute to the things that we're handed, and we just take them as the truth, and then it would be a blaspheme to simply think something differently, and if anybody ever watches this, first of all, we would never judge any way of looking at something. And if you guys wanted to comment, if anybody ever watches this in the next 100 years and we are still alive, which doesn't seem possible, well, we'll be alive, but just not here, motherfucker. No, I'm joking.
Just not in this illusion.
But seriously, if anybody watches this and gives us, their opinion, their outlook, the question is, what do you think this is? What do you think happens after death?
How do you think we got here?
How do you think we got here? This is all.
What is it like to fall asleep
and not and technically exist?
What is it like to fall asleep having never? Oh, no, see, how does Alan Watts say this? This is what is it like to fall asleep and never wake up? What about waking up having never fallen asleep? Because that's how our birth was. Where was we before that?
That's something I love so much.
We woke up without remembering falling asleep.
That's the talk that's been going on for so many years. The Eastern mystics, they say you are 35 years old and somebody comes up and asks you your age, they'll say, oh, I'm 3. And what they're referring to is that they've actually they awakened 3 years ago. This is a very good thing to go by. And
because they felt like they were dead, just they were a walking corpse and lost in the illusion.
I mean, let's really talk about this truth. Say somebody is living their life on every spare moment they get, like nothing else, simply eating and on their tablets, their phones, and just clicking on random one video after another, and that's it, like nothing else. I mean, is that being alive?
I would say not. You're not even having your own experiences. You're having experiences that are being curated by probably companies and people that don't have your best interests in mind and are trying to manipulate you.
You take a couple shells of kava and you walk out into nature. It's automatically living. It's unbelievable. I've noticed, not taking kava now, but having those experiences, it's still, so special. You look at this, we take it for granted. You know, holy plants such as kava has really, and kratom, they've really showed us, you know, the importance of at least spending a little bit of time in nature. My my wife and I, somebody that was close to her at one point, they cracked me up so much, and because they was raised so differently than, say, you know, my brother and I, but they couldn't stand to be outside just for a few minutes. You know, the winter time was just too cold. I had to hurry up and get from the car to the house as soon as possible. It was miserable, that transition. Or summertime would be way too hot. You know, all these seasons, obviously, we can have, you know, certain times of the year where it is a bit excruciating, but to be outside as much as possible, you know, going back to some of the things, you know, me and my brother did at a young age, you know, our mom definitely preferred us being outside. She can get her various, you know, work done, her like cleaning, and we, but even if that wasn't the case, we really loved being outside. Literally on summer break, from the time we got up and ate until it was dark, and sometimes after dark. Later on in years, we've spent some amazing times. Uh, Wait till the clock turns about midnight, get a couple flashlights, and take a walk through the woods. And it's interesting. It's fun. It's spooky. You know, it's just
I was talking to my girlfriend the other day.
we everybody needs to experience that.
Because we was outside smoking some dope, and we heard some weird. It was really weird. I don't think I told you about this.
Blair Witch Project.
It was like we heard cats. Well, we didn't know what it was at first. Like, but it was like something else in a harmony with it. And not only that, but we heard something rustling in the distance because we're kind of in a wooded area here. And we heard a sound coming from the other side, and we heard these, what we later found out to be cats, like that were just like making the most crazy sounds. And they were like, dude, they were sitting like right over here, and
A bunch of them together.
just two of them together, and they were just acting so weird, and they were making these weird noises. But yeah, and I was telling her like how scary it is. You know, me and you have done this plenty of times. Be walking in the woods, and then start hearing coyotes.
Oh my god!
If you've
yes.
never been in the woods, you know, by yourself or just you and another person,
it is,
and start hearing those cries of the coyotes, it's
you may be in for a pretty scary situation.
terrifying sounding.
You know, I look back at those times, like you just mentioned, one of them being the time we were literally surrounded by coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully,
And
they
they didn't have
ended
a
up,
firearm either.
we didn't, and thankfully they ended up kind of going their own way. But even that experience that was very scary, we look back on it with such fondness. You know,
Yes, it was fun.
It's fun. It's beautiful.
That lack of danger, you know, people live such sanitized lives,
I love
and
that.
this is not good at all. And you know, we talked about indigenous people earlier.
Mm-hmm.
If World War III breaks out and we're in a survival situation, dude, even us are probably not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
People that are in their bunkers with their fucking spam and pork and beans, I don't think they're going to make it. They're eventually going to run out. The people that's going to make it, the people that we will want to learn from, is these indigenous people.
Yeah.
And you know, we should be in communion with nature as much as possible.
Yeah.
And our culture is completely out of touch with that, and we try to surround ourselves with this. I'm not saying comfort is bad, but we need adversity, you know, and you know, sitting around doom scrolling it's not going to do anything for you, man. I mean,
you know, imagine that's your whole life, no conversations about anything like this.
Dude, that blows my mind.
And they go to their grave and they have to freak the fuck out. I mean, I would assume.
Oh yeah, the
we're gonna
DMT
freak
starts
out,
kicking
like,
in. Wow.
Can you imagine?
Do you know what
You
Steve
know,
Jobs' last words were?
no.
He was an LSD user too. He was
Who
the
was this
guy.
guy? He sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was the guy behind Apple.
Was he old when he died?
He died of cancer. He was about 50.
What was his last words?
Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow.
You know, we can talk about these. These are really cool. Leicester Crawley, the gentleman we talk about a lot of videos, have so much respect for. Oh my gosh, his vast assortment of magical and mystical writings and teachings is insane. Now, I will admit, you know, a lot of the stuff he touches on, it's out there, and some of it can be problematic to grasp on. It takes a lot of going over, looking up what certain words mean, but his last words, you know, all the things that he's seen through his masculine use, you know, all of his ceremonies, magical he has had, was I'm perplexed. So that shows a lot that it's going to be pretty freaky to say the least.
I love what he said about death. He said, and dude, the I'm perplexed thing. Honestly, there's so much, so much. Crawley is such a.
Oh, you're saying it might not be real?
Yeah, I mean,
it could
it
not,
very
yeah.
well could
I'm
not
just
be real.
taking something that I've read on a very.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what
I
he
wouldn't
said.
either. I'll be
You know,
right
because they
back.
say like LaVey was repentive at his death, and people that were there said that was absolutely not the case. You know, so who knows? But I love what Crawley said about death. He said that he feels like a boy waiting on his first sexual experience. You know, that's how much allure he had to this mystery. You know, when we really think about death, which is something our culture tends to try to stay away from. I mean, it's inevitable. You know, Buddhism talks about sickness, old age, and death, and we should meditate upon that because it's coming. Sickness, old age, and death is coming soon for all of us, and but this is the way it should be, you know, and death is the veil lifted, and it's the mystery. It's the greatest mystery. And you know, I was talking to you earlier about Watts, and he has that thought experiment about if you were an infinite being, you know, what would you do? What do you really want? You know, and and if you were an infinite being, you know, and if you were given omnipotence at this moment, you might start out by fulfilling your wishes. You know, maybe paying off your mortgage, or getting a new car, or getting your marriage in order, or whatever it is. And then you might think, oh wait, I can do anything. So I might insert myself into a adventurous dimension, and I'll be fighting dragons and big castles in the sky, and then you might do that for a few trillion eons, and then you might say, let's do something really interesting. Let's insert myself into a dimension where I'm cut off from the knowledge that I am infinite, and there's going to be this kind of hidden thing, you know, that is, you know, to me, one of the greatest secrets, I think, is DMT.
Yeah.
I really do. DMT is what's released in dreams.
Are you talking about what's in our brain, or the other, like the
What's in our brains?
Oh, it's the same. But
You know, a lot of people think, a lot of neuroscientists, I think Strassman's hunch too was that DMT is probably a death chemical. You know, they called it a necrotogen, and like that right there, DMT, for example. It's a secret. It's the greatest secret. Think about it.
Yeah.
It's when you have that experience, you know, and you see these entities, and you know, what are these entities? Are these human souls?
Yeah.
You know, what if that's our real essence? You know, this infinite, these DMT elves, and I don't know if I've really talked about this a whole lot. I'm kind of rambling right now.
No, go ahead.
I think elves,
Mm.
as funny as it sounds to Western people, is a really accurate description of what these things are like.
Yeah.
Like I've never done smoked DMT, but I've done very high doses of
And
psilocybin,
that's similar.
which is
Yeah,
very
pretty
similar.
much.
People like McKenna, I heard him talk about this today. He said, literally, the only difference between psilocybin and NN-DMT is this. So what psilocin is, so psilocybin is converted into psilocin in your liver, and psilocin's chemical formula is, or chemical name is 4-phosphorylloxy NN-DMT, and that 4-phosphorylloxy is makes it orally active. So you're having a DMT trip over the course of 4 to 6 hours, but on high doses and with the right intentions and asking the right questions, you can definitely navigate yourself to that space, and you will encounter entities. I've encountered insectoid entities, but the elves are very interesting. What I mean by elves is they just have very elven energy.
Yeah.
Like they're like very playful, and they pun. They like to say jokes, and they
That's
pun,
cool.
and they want you to pun too. If you don't pun with them and you don't joke with them,
They don't like that?
they don't like that. They like somebody that's going to, kind of
roll with the punches.
roll with the punches, but they will sing things, and you will see these entities. I've seen them go like this before, like, oh, oh, and stuff will come out of their mouths, and they will literally condense objects out of their mouths through sound. And when people take ayahuasca, there's these things called icaros. Icaros are these ancient ayahuasca songs, and people in the Amazon, they talk about these songs as if they are paintings, because when they're on ayahuasca,
Yeah.
it's becoming visual to them.
You hear the sound, like you see what you hear.
Right.
You described that too.
This comes back to magic too, certain vibratory things you can do with your voice, certain vibratory languages that create a certain change. We're just in our normal state of consciousness unable to perceive these types of things, but there are entities probably all around us all the time, that's a very very perplexing thing.
For sure.
And they talk to you in your native tongue.
Yeah, isn't that something too? I didn't finish the video, but the gentleman, we really love his content, Psych Substance. He was, I was watching one. I was going to actually show you this one later. Magic mushrooms and LSD is what he was talking about. I think he has tried DMT. I'm pretty sure, right, man? Yeah, ayahuasca and has it done ayahuasca?
I don't think so.
I know he doesn't salvia.
It would be very hard to do that. You would have to go to the Amazon. These plants don't grow around here. See, McKenna. Okay, there's what's called pharmahuasca. Have you heard of that? Pharmahuasca.
No, I haven't.
So what that is you take synthesized DMT and combine it with a pharmaceutical MAOI, and it's a little different. But
was this back in McKenna's day too?
McKenna didn't do pharmahuasca.
Was it back in his day? I wonder.
That they did pharmahuasca.
Yeah.
I don't know when they started to first do it. He talked about it, but he was more about the plants. But you see, he lived in Hawaii, and he could actually grow Banisteriopsis caapi, and he could grow these plants because it's a more tropical place.
I want to look up if Psych Substance has done mescaline.
Yes.
Oh, have you watched that one?
Yep. Remember the one that
That's mescaline?
That's mescaline. That was peyote.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I did not know this. That's what Crawley felt like. Wait, read it. Like, whoa, that's so cool. Yeah, I didn't know he done mescaline, but yeah, I was watching this. It was really an interesting video. I didn't end up finishing it, but he talks about these, all psychedelics, they connect, parts of our brain that otherwise would have never connected. And we kind of drew the conclusion, if you look at a small infant, somebody a very young kid who hasn't really been corrupted
or
or
inculcated with cultural
right.
ideology.
It looks almost a little bit similar to somebody who would
Yeah, it takes years for a child to their brains start to kind of differentiate.
I mean, it's classic. They believe in magic.
Right.
You know, anybody else would scoff at that. You know,
Right.
that you need to quit this right away. There's no magic in the world. You know, the only thing is
The world is made of magic.
yeah, everything's magic.
One of the trippiest statements in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, the Christian God, you know, in the Adam and Eve story, you see he doesn't want us to know the truth. You know, he says, don't eat of this fruit because you'll become as I am. You will become as we are, he said. You know, so that God, he wants you to stay stupid. He don't want you to elevate yourself.
Nobody can have the kratom kava combo but me. And that's right. I said that's right. I said that's right. No, I'm joking. I'm just I just had to do that.
Hey, it's all good, man.
But yeah, as he was talking about, you know, we, well, I don't think we read this part, but, you know, me and my wife read this part. I thought it was pretty interesting. Couldn't tell you where it's at. I don't know any of this, but I was just flipping through the Bible one day and stumbled upon some interesting subjects. Well, for one, they refer to it as sorcery is forbidden because what enlightenment we get is from our Lord Jesus Christ. The funny thing is, one of the holy men, well, I just thought this was a coincidence. A lot of these holy men that they talk about throughout the Bible, one of them, and I don't know much of his story, but Saul, King Saul, he was a king at one time. He was his, you know, people was about to go into a war. He wanted to know what the outcome would be.
He went to a witch.
He went to a witch, asked her, and everything went south, and he fell on his sword. You know, he committed suicide, and I can't help but wonder whenever I read that. So does that mean this? If he's a holy man, he killed himself. If you kill yourself, you're going to go to hell. So did he go to hell? You know, like
right.
Nobody talks about that part of it, though. Like
there's all kinds of contradictions in that. You know, and one of the biggest problems with Christianity to me, you know, I mean, it definitely is. You know, Crowley talks about the changes of the eons, and you know, in the beginning, you had the goddess religions, the pastoral religions, when we were early humans, and we worshipped cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And the cattle was a symbol of the goddess, and we all know.
You sent me that, didn't you?
Cow pies are the preferred substrate for Psilocybe cubensis mushrooms. So they were having this goddess connection through the mushroom, and they revered the cow. Mm-hmm. And this religion or this religious structure, we were constantly connecting with this. You know, the Gaian mind, and we were tuned in, and when you introduce something like psilocybin into the diet, you disrupt the normal monkey behavior, you know, and you would become egoless, and become as one organism, and it's what's called a partnership society, and then. You know, as environments changed and the mushroom became less available, you had the eon of the god. You know, this is monotheism. This is when Christianity started to come around, and Islam, and these types of religions, and yeah, I mean that's what Christianity is. It's it's a paternal religion. It's a male dominator religion, and you know it's an authoritarian religion, and there's nothing I hate more than people who think they have authority over someone else. Dude, if me and you were stranded on an island and you decided to spark up some cannabis that you found there, who am I to say, hey, you can't smoke that. I'm gonna lock you up in a cage. That's
I know.
ridiculous.
That's
and
where it
and it's
started.
just as ridiculous
Yeah.
on a large scale like
Yeah.
this.
It's the same exact. Oh man.
But the idea that the authoritarian idea of Christianity, you know, like you don't do what I say, you're going to hell. That right there is just it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's wrong. And this is a reason why I tend to lean towards the more cyclical system of life and death, because and karma, you know, I do think that, you know, like I've talked about General Butt Naked, this guy that was an African warlord and he killed and he ate children, literally ate babies. And now he's a Christian. Never did any jail
Now he's
time.
considered a good guy.
Now he's
past.
revered. Oh, he had a rapid transformation. He's a good guy now.
Yeah.
You know, and he's going to go to heaven. But somebody like me and you, who
One of the devil's for.
yeah, who look at reality as objectively as possible, that look at it.
You guys read that Crowley.
Yeah, without any filter.
Yeah.
We're going to hell. You know, even it doesn't matter how compassionate we are. We didn't surrender to this maniacal doom god, and that's wrong. You know.
You know, he mentioned a gentleman earlier that he knows. Same as us. He listens to bands such as Acid Bath and Electric Wizard, and bands that are very
satanic,
very dark. But I was also a Christian, and that's, I think, a kind of a good reminder, a good mirror to examine oneself.
I give him shit about it all the time. I really do. And he literally does this. Like, he'll just be like, and he won't respond to it. Like, he knows I'm right.
That's weird how he don't respond to it.
He knows I'm right. When I say, huh.
Who is this? Oh, I'm sorry.
The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah,
you know, he's maybe listening to.
Oh, you mean that song, The Devil's Rejects?
Yeah, or he might be listening to something that has like a blatantly satanic lyrics. And I'll be like, huh, this doesn't seem like it's representing Christ consciousness.
There's an Electric Wizard song that's a lot of them, but this is one that came to my mind. The title is "Destroy All Who Love God." I'll be so cracked up if you listen to that one.
I mean, I do have a strong dislike for
that kind of
for that model of divinity, you know, and I don't think it corresponds to real experience. You know, we should bring our consciousness back into the felt presence of the moment. We should, because anytime we start to abstract, you know, or look in the future, we become anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you bring your consciousness to the felt presence of the moment right now, anxiety goes away.
It does.
Anxiety goes away.
Key,
so
man.
bring abstraction is the knife edge at our throats. We want to bring things, and this is what the shamans understand. And this is what mushrooms and things like and these plants teach you to be in the moment. And I think that was about it.
Dude, I'm so fucking glad you brought that up, because this is something that I've really been working on in recent months. You know, it's so easy for me to worry about something a month away, or having to do mundane, monotonous things such as, oh man, I don't want to have to go to the DMV next week and renew my driver's license.
They call it the DMV.
That's the truth, man.
Anyone who's been there knows exactly what I mean.
Great lyrics from the great Promise.
Yes, sir.
What's the gentleman's name?
Les Claypool.
Les Goodman. Which is another gentleman off of that 59 Twilight Zone episode.
Hare Krishna. By the power of earth and air, we bless and consecrate our space in the name of the goddess and the god, so mote it be.
May we harness the lightning for higher and keep reaching for the mystical states. Yeah, it's a really good reminder and a reflection. You know, your the things that you are interested in, do they align with your religion?
And what's your acting now
You know,
in your day-to-day life?
what you're acting out. Like, what about this? This is something that never is talked about. At least most people don't. Say you get off of, you get out of your Christian Baptist church, what do you call it? Get together, and you run to a pizza shop and order a big large pizza with extra toppings. But I'm gonna go further, not just gluttony, but then you take it home, open up a can of beer.
Yep.
I'm gonna take it even further.
Oh, I don't do no drugs. I drink every now and then a couple beers. Nothing wrong with that. My daddy used to drink beer. He would hoot and holler, but he was a good man, a good Christian boy.
And you go farther.
Bullshit.
And most of all,
Hogwash.
it is. Besides those two things, you sit down and watch a scary movie. Scary movies are satanic.
For sure.
But nobody, why? I know so many Christians who go to, in October, very gruesome themed haunted houses. One of them being called the Dark Baptism. They keep going there, but sometimes they might say, "Oh, that was a little. I didn't like the title to that name." That's one of the worst. That's blaspheming. You're
Dude,
like,
I love that LeVay quote. He says, well, at least Christian parents let their children worship Satan one day a
that's
year.
so true. Yeah,
Dude, I've said this a lot to some of my peers around Halloween. I'll say, I love Halloween. It's such a satanic holiday. And they'll be like, they like Halloween too, but they didn't like how I put it that way. But it is.
That's the
dark side, and it's beautiful. It's macabre.
People are drawn to these things, but they try to put a layer of protection over top
Self-deceit.
To make themselves, it's
self-deceit. They're deceiving themselves. And
I know two women who, they're around our age, and they look at themselves as very holy, never do any wrong. Let me just say this: they watch scary movies frequently, but during the cuss words, they plug their ears at the bad part.
Oh, wow.
These are obviously, adults like we are. They go to these haunted houses. It's easy for them to point out everybody's sins, but never their own. There's just, for one thing, the judgment is so off the mark for anybody seeking true love, for that to be the consciousness. We're bringing these things up to what maybe we can step back and look at some of the things that culture is stuffing down our throats, just like they want you to keep stuffing those Big Macs down your throats.
You know what McKenna said? He said, what are we to do, to get out of this culture? He said, simply walk away from it.
I love that. I simply will it.
Yeah, just walk away from it.
Yeah.
Get the data stream is tainted. We must return to first principles, which is our own lives, our own bodies, our own experiences. And we need to the most solid thing we have is the authenticity of our own experiences. Yeah. That's what should be a big guiding principle, And there's a deeper layer to this too, which is, there is, perhaps a transcendental reality that cannot quite be grasped by the intellect, but is something that is experiential, and in ritual, you can have these types of experiences, and with these plants, they bring forth feelings that are astonishing and that leads you towards freedom.
Yeah, that's the ultimate, that freedom and that love, that consciousness, that very source of why we are all here. Onto a different subject, and I talked about this a little bit on the magic video, about just say you are on a plant, it's moving you, and you just start getting overwhelmed with these different quotes from some of the greats, or something that inspires you to just blurt that out. I experienced that again earlier today. I was playing around with some different even like voice, changing the voice, and just
Yeah.
I was it just hit me a few minutes ago, and there's just so very much that we can do to help us, to aid
Tap
us
into this thing.
to
Man.
tap into this thing. I'm telling you, I feel that it's, for one thing, possibly overcomplicated.
Yeah.
We can overcomplicate things, and it's got a unique side to it. And it's funny that everything that culture would tell you about whatever these things are, culture would say, well, this is, you should be embarrassed for letting these things come from your lips, whatever they are. We mentioned talking about magic, well,
it's been so trivialized.
Most people would probably just think of magic with just the C and not the K. Like, oh, you mean like somebody, doing some card tricks. Well, I will say it is very fun to play cards on a kava ceremony. But yeah, all these things, we hope that everybody will come to completely separate themselves from what this culture is, because once we do that, why do you think we named our YouTube channel this? Culture is not your friend. To really get away from it, this is
it's toxic.
This is the biggest key.
And we in the West have the delusion that we're doing it right. We're trying to convert the indigenous people into this mall culture world, and that is so disgraceful. Any society that is okay with the Amazon rainforest being slashed at a country-sized rate every year is insane. We are living in an insane culture.
That way they can have more McDonald's too. Yeah,
more Burger King cheeseburgers for us.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. It is almost too nightmarish to contemplate, and like Ramdas said, somebody asked him, like, do you think we're in the age of Aquarius and change and high consciousness and rising consciousness, or do you think that we're on the brink of extinction?
Yeah.
And he said, well, if it is the Aquarian age, then I will work on my consciousness. I will relieve the suffering that I can around me, and I will work on myself. And he said, and if we're heading towards Armageddon, I will work on my consciousness. I will try to relieve the suffering around me. Does it really matter?
Yeah.
We gotta, as an individual unit, try to fix ourselves in as many ways as possible, heal ourselves. And I think that's these plants come into play, man. They're healers, especially these tryptamines and psychedelics. They can, in so many ways heal you, from addiction to trauma, to death, fear. They give psilocybin to cancer patients.
Yeah, I've read that before.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Psilocybin has a lot to say about death, man.
I wonder what kind of like microdoses do they give them? I wonder.
I'll say they're giving them probably trip doses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. My sacred plant is wearing down a bit. Trying to figure out if there's anything else I want to say.
I think we've probably said enough in this video.
I do too, my good man. Yes. As we started out the video, I would just love to say once again that we will do everything possible to, as Crawley said, harness the lightning for hire. Be the Lord of our spirit.
Hare Krishna. I hope each and every person that is watching this video, or even if they're not watching this video, everyone out there can find peace and work every day on, be patient with yourself. And there is hope, and we can all free ourselves, and we all have the possibility to do so. And we should give a thorough investigation of reality, and fight for our freedom in every way we can, and as individuals represent um, as high of consciousness as we can. We need consciousness more than anything else, and we are in very interesting times, and we have so much more power than we think, and a lot of this is to do with the way we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned in this culture to externalize our egos, pray for it. No, that spirit is inside yourself, and you can use it, and through intention and magic, you can do great things, and the ultimate goal is to free ourselves, and great way to start is staying away from the cult of the surface. It's not good. It's very toxic.
Well said, my good man.
All right, we'll close it with that.
Kava bless.
Of Satanas.